Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to crack the code on what is essentially a universal translator for the entire digital world. We're diving into something called DFDL, the Data Format Description Language. Just think about that for a second. What if every single chunk of data, no matter how old or weird its format is, could be understood by any modern system instantly? Well, that's the big idea we're exploring today. But before we can appreciate the solution, we have to get our heads around the problem. And in the world of data, it is a massive one. I like to call it the data Babel problem. See, our digital universe is a lot like that ancient story of the Tower of Babel. We have just countless data formats, and they're all speaking their own unique language. You've got your everyday stuff, right, like CSVs, but then you've got these ancient formats from COBOL mainframes. And then there are the really complex industry-specific ones, like Swift for banking or HIPAA for healthcare. The bottom line? None of them can understand each other out of the box. And this slide right here gets to the absolute heart of it. You can have two files with the exact same logical information, literally the same facts, but because their physical layout is different, one system might read one file just fine, but see the other as complete gibberish. It's the same meaning, just spoken in a totally different dialect. So, how in the world do you solve this data Babel problem without forcing everyone on the planet to learn some brand new data language? Well, this is where our translator steps in. The answer is the Data Format Description Language, or DFDL. And I want you to focus on one word here because it's the most important one: description. DFDL doesn't try to create a new format. It's designed to simply describe the ones that already exist. And because tech people love a good nickname, you'll often hear it pronounced daffodil. It's a pretty friendly name for a seriously powerful piece of technology. This quote really just says it all. If you only remember one thing from this whole explainer, let it be this: DFDL is not another data format trying to replace all the others. Nope, it's the universal rulebook for explaining them. This brings us to a really crucial distinction. DFDL is descriptive, not prescriptive. Think of it like a linguist who can write down the grammar rules for any language on Earth without trying to change how people actually speak it. It's a universal translator, not a new global language. Okay, so let's get into the weeds a bit. How does this whole description thing actually work? How can one language possibly describe so many others?
Well, the absolute genius of DFDL is that its creators didn't start from scratch. They built it right on top of a super well-known rock-solid standard called XML Schema, which is already a universal way to define the structure of data. It was a really, really smart move.
So it all breaks down into a pretty simple three-step process. First, you start with your raw data, just a stream of text or binary. Next, you use that standard XML schema to build a logical model. This just defines what the data means, that there's a thing called name, a thing called age. And then you add the DFDL magic, annotations that describe the physical layout. You're telling the system, hey, these fields are separated by a comma. It brilliantly separates the meaning of the data from its format. And the end result of all this is something called an information set. Basically, it takes that messy, raw data and turns it into a pure, logical representation of the information inside. Now it's completely independent of its original physical format, and any modern system can understand and work with it. All right, so this all sounds fantastic in theory, right? But is anyone actually using this in the real world? Let's take a look. Oh yeah, it's being used by some serious heavy hitters. You've got tech giants like IBM building it into their core enterprise and mainframe products. There's a huge open source version from Apache called, you guessed it, Daffodil. Even the European Space Agency uses it to process satellite data. This is not just some academic theory. It's real production-ready tech. And this slide, this really shows you its power. We're not just talking about simple CSV files. We are talking about taming the absolute beasts of the data world. These incredibly complex, rigid standards that run global trade, international finance, and mission-critical military systems. In those worlds, you can't just change a data format that's been around for decades. You have to preserve it. DFDL gives you a single, standard way to unlock all of them without changing a single byte of the source data. So let's bring this all together. Why does this whole descriptive approach matter so much? What's the big takeaway? Here it is. The real power of DFDL is that you get to work with data exactly as it is, right where it is. You don't have to tell that old mainframe system to change. You don't have to rewrite decades of code. You just describe the old format and boom, it can suddenly talk to your most modern cloud applications. It's the bridge between the old and the new. And look, this is not some new, untested idea. This timeline shows that the journey started over 20 years ago. It has been refined, hardened, and battle-tested for years and years, finally culminating in 2024 by becoming an official international standard from ISO. That's the ultimate seal of approval. This is a mature, robust, and globally recognized solution.
So I'll just leave you with this final thought. We often dream about finding that one perfect data format that will solve everything. But maybe that's the wrong goal. In a world with infinite data formats, perhaps the real key isn't creating one more, but finding a single way to understand all the ones we already have.